Welcome to my dash story. When I envisioned this whole concept, this guy right here is one of the main people I wanted to talk with. Just an old school Southern gentleman's soul, and as you will learn, a very entertaining person as well. Thanks for taking the time and being here tonight, Philip.
Thank you, Southern gentleman. Wow.
Well, let's get going. Philip graduated from the University of Alabama with a degree in law enforcement, started his career as a police officer in the Carrollton Police Department, then went on his own to start a very successful travel agency in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. He's a husband and father of 2 children and has countless dogs. Man, I'm so glad you're here tonight. I really am, Philip. I've been looking forward to this one. So, let's start out with the obvious one. University of Alabama.
Roll Tide.
Yes. What was it like going to the University of Alabama?
Well, I'm from that area.
Right.
So I grew up probably about 30 minutes, 40 minutes away from the campus, a little town called Eutaw, Alabama. So growing up, I was born in the early 60s. So, Alabama football was larger than life. So you had the coach, Bear Bryant, cast a huge shadow over the whole state. It was a big thing. So I always wanted to go there. And when the area I grew up in didn't have a very good school system, so I went to boarding school. So then when I went to Alabama itself, I didn't know a whole lot of people. I knew almost no one, which was weird for someone that grew up, 40 minutes away from campus. So I joined a fraternity, which I have the unpopular opinion. I know people don't agree with this, but my fraternity did haze, nothing very physical, but there was hazing, and it was really good for me. It really helped me. I know that sounds weird,
right?
But going into that night, the first night, they called it a cake and ice cream party. Spoiler alert, there's no cake, there's no ice cream. But so I go in, I didn't know anybody else in my pledge class. I go to the fraternity, had a dining room, we're in there. All of a sudden, all these guys come in and start screaming at us. And they are furious and say, the pledge thing, it starts now. So I walked into that room and I really knew no one. I knew a couple of the actives, the older guys that had recruited me, but I knew no one else. And after about an hour and a half of that, and then we had to clean up the house, they ripped up papers and threw them all over the fraternity house. I had about 30 brothers, allies leaving that room because we had mutual enemies of the other 100 guys in that fraternity. So we got to be real close, real quick. So going into that room, didn't know anybody. Coming out, I had some people I could count on very, very quickly. And for me, the fraternity life was very good. It gave me a base of people. The whole pledge program lasted from September probably through March.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was a great experience for me. The pledge program itself, it stinks. You gain haze. It's a pain. But the whole fraternity experience was a great one. The people in my pledge class, we have a group chat. We still stay in contact. We try to get together once a year. So it was very important. It was, again, being in Alabama, going to the football games, you wore coat and tie to the football games.
Wow.
The girls wore dresses. So I remember, I think it was my second football game there. I asked this girl out. You didn't know her that well, but you had to have a date for the football game. Didn't know her that well. She was cute. She said yes, that she'd go with me. And of course, back then the drinking age was lower. And so I pick her up and we're walking to the stadium. You walk to the stadium, picked her up at the sorority house and we're walking. And she goes, do you have any alcohol? And I had a flask. Yeah, I got this flask. She goes, give me your flask. And I gave her my flask. She hiked up her dress, had a garter belt, and stuck the flask in the garter belt. So no one, when they searched me, they wouldn't find it at the stadium. Ah. And as she's doing that, I'm thinking, I think this is love. That's one of the hottest things I ever saw, and super functional. And so it was like, okay, this is interesting. This is okay. But yeah, so you go in the coat and tie. My first semester at Alabama, I did okay grade-wise, not great, but okay. Second semester, not so much. Alcohol was a factor. Getting out of the pledge program, because when we were in the pledge program, you had study halls. You had to go to study hall. Once I was out of the pledge program, that wasn't a requirement anymore. And there wasn't a lot of studying going on.
When you say you were recruited,
Well, and that is a maybe an overstatement. Recruiting goes on for the fraternities.
yeah,
Not for me as much, but my father was a Sigma Nu. That was a fraternity I was in, Sigma Nu, and so I was a legacy.
okay,
So because of that, they did contact me and knew that I was coming to Alabama, and so I had a couple of the guys take me out, and I was kind of leaning towards Sigma Nu anyway, because that's my dad's fraternity, and they were good guys. But with other people, the ones that were, of course, I went to high school outside of Alabama. I went to boarding school in Tennessee. But the other ones, who you would have a group from Birmingham, a group from Montgomery, and so they would know the people that were coming up. With my little school in Eutaw, no one did much college at all, and certainly didn't do the fraternity route. But they would know coming up that, hey, this kid coming up is a good kid. We need to get him, and then they would recruit. They would be trying to talk them into coming to their fraternity. They'd invite them to parties.
cake and ice cream.
Well, not that kind of a party, but these are more of the fraternity parties, and the deal is you could not ask them to be part of the fraternity until they graduated high school. And so you would have, for some of the top kids that are going after, you would have the kid walk up on stage, get his diploma, walk down the stairs, and you'd have the fraternity guy right there trying to give him the pledge pin to accept the pledge. And one of my favorites is, I had a guy who said, for our Sigma Nu, I think the deal was, he said we could do it once every 2 years. I don't remember exactly the timing, but he said, if you've got a great one and you need some help, you can do it. Well, I won't do it all the time. So I remember, the one kid, we did that. I wasn't part of this, but they got the kid they're recruiting, and they're like 3 or 4 of them, and they drove them to this house, just in the neighborhood. Go in there, and this lady's in there, and older lady, and they have some iced tea and cookies, and put them in this room, and Bear Bryant walks in. And Bear Bryant was a Sigma Nu. So Bear had said, once every couple of years, I'll help you get a pledge you want to get. Right. And of course, he was undefeated. Every time he went in and talked to him, they immediately accepted the bid of being Sigma Nu. And he would sit there, and they say he'd lean up and go, explain, just like he would with his recruits. Of course, he was a great recruiter. So he was used to it anyway, and now he's doing it for the fraternity every now and then. So that would put it over the edge. So that was an interesting dynamic. The fraternity was an interesting dynamic. I had already been on my own, having gone to that boarding school, but now you're really kind of on your own. There really aren't that many guide rails. You're out there doing your own thing, which explains my GPA dropping like a rock the second half of my freshman year and my sophomore year. But the pledge program itself was fascinating, because you had to pretty much do favors for these actives. I know we had to have change. There are some things you had to have. You had to have change in your pocket. I think you had to be able to make change for $1. You had to have matches or a lighter on you. There was something else too, but I can't remember what it was now. Other thing you had to do is you had to be able to recite the Greek alphabet. It was 2 or 3 times by the amount of time that a match had burned down. And what was stressful is, it's one thing when you had to strike the match and say it that fast. A lot of times the active would do it instead of us. And he'd say, okay, I'm striking the match. If you don't do it fast enough, it'll burn my fingers. And you're like, oh God. So you had to do it as fast as you can. If you messed up, had to start over, and the actor would burn his fingers, and he's furious at you and yelling and screaming. But so we had to do favors for them. There was, like I said, not really much, not physical hazing, but had to do things for them. And they had it set up where they wanted at least 2 or 3 pledges at the fraternity house at all times, as much as possible. And I remember that at the beginning, I was like everybody else. I was, I didn't want any part of it. It was a mess. I tried to hide. And then I had this, when I went to high school, I had this young lady who was a great, my first girlfriend, wonderful young lady, dated for like a year and a half. And she dumped me, for long distance. It's a mess. It was fine, but it hurt like hell. And one day I'm walking back from class and I have to go to the fraternity house and I get caught there. I'm there, I think, from 2 o'clock to like 9 o'clock. And I'm having to go from project to project, go do this, do that, just stuff you hate to do. And as I'm driving home, I realized I hadn't thought about her in 7 hours. And as crappy as what they were having me do was, it was better than thinking about missing my girlfriend. And I'm like, that's a great solution. I'd rather do that than be sitting there hurting about the girlfriend, dumping me. And so by doing that, I was there all the time and just trying to not hurt, and did not have any idea what was going to come from that. 2 things came from that. Number one is, when this thing was finally over in March, I got elected best pledge by the fraternity members.
There we go.
But number 2 is, after me being there, doing that all the time, 3 or 4 weeks, they'd be in there and they just yell pledge. You had to go run to go help them. And there'd be some horrible things we'd have to do, but I'd get there and they'd go, you're here all the time, not you. You go do that. And so I'd show up and I didn't have to do hardly anything because I was there all the time. And they were trying to spread around the misery. And because I was there all the time, they were assuming that I was having a hard time to do terrible stuff, but I didn't. One of my favorites is, and I won't tell you what it was because, but something bad had happened, something disgusting had happened that had to be cleaned up.
Okay.
And they called one of my pledge brothers and said, hey, you got to come clean this up. Your pledge brother did this. You got to come clean it up. And he's like, oh, no. So he called another one of our pledge brothers who never did hardly anything and said, they just called me and told you had to go do this. And so he didn't do it. He called the other guy, told him he had to go do it. But anyway, it was a good time. It was learned from it, learned some valuable lessons from it, learned, working hard makes things go easier as time goes on. That was a good lesson for me. But like I said, Alabama itself, it was a good experience. Academically, didn't take it as seriously as I wish I had, but great college. Right. Love it.
So when you became a sophomore, junior, and senior, and now you had your own pledges.
Correct.
What was that like?
So I was, for the most part, pretty easy, pretty laid back. I know one thing I did that was bad. I think it was my sophomore year. And again, I'm saying this isn't a good thing. No. Kids, don't try this at home. But I had gone to see a friend of mine and I had way too much to drink. I shouldn't be driving.
Seems like a pattern.
At that time it was bad. And so I'm driving down River Road, going back to the fraternity house, and it's like, I'm gonna be sick. It's gonna happen. I'm gonna be sick. And so I pulled over, stopped the car, put it in gear, and said, I'm just gonna put my head out the window and yak. And here it comes, and I forgot to roll the window down. And all over me, all over the car, all over everything. And so this was right before school started. So a mature thing to do would be to clean that up. But what I did is I locked the car and waited a couple of weeks. And then when we got our pledges, that's one pledge who was the golden boy that everybody was trying, that everybody loved, everybody wanted this guy. He'd been there and he'd always been kind of snooty to me. So as soon as he got to be a pledge, he said, I got a job for you. But besides that, I was pretty easy on it.
2 weeks.
Yeah. It was August. It was nice. It was nice and baked in by then. But part of it is I didn't want to be a jerk. Number 2, I had known some of the things that I had done, and I knew that that was a thing. I know one time when I was a pledge, I was having dinner and everybody's there together. Also, when the actor looks up and he goes, none of the pledge have salads. None of them have salads. And everybody screams and yells. Well, they're right. No one had salads because we had peed in the salad. And so,
Oh,
you know, when you do laundry, you pee in the laundry. I mean, you know, so there's no way I was having those guys do my laundry because I know 100% they're gonna pee in my laundry.
right.
So yeah, so I didn't have them do anything. You had them go get a Coke from you across the street. You go to Galette's and they'd the little liquor store there, and they'd have the soda fountains there. Oh, I mean, why would you send me to go get you a soda like that with the ice and I'm gonna spit in your soda. It's gonna happen,
Right.
you know. So there's no way I had the pledges do it
So
for
to
me.
this day, is that why you avoid salads?
Yeah, that's it.
That's probably the reason. Pretty sure. All right. So I always get this feeling when you talk about fraternity. How realistically was it to Animal House, the movie?
It was not that bad, but it wasn't super far off. You know, and I lived at Fraternity House 3 years.
Right.
Sophomore, junior, senior year, I lived there. And so, you know, you would have crazy stuff happening all the time.
Yeah.
It was just bedlam. And, you know, you've got a bunch of stupid 18 to 22-year-old guys there. And, you know, you're talking about things like our doors, it didn't have a doorknob, it had a lock. One of those bolt locks. That's how you opened and closed it. And the door's metal. And it opened to the inside. So if you're opening, your door's locked, you just get your key, you open it, push it, and then you close it, you lock it. You know, that's fine. But you know, these maniacs, it's a metal door. So one thing they love to do is they would come, they'd push as hard as they can on your door. You're in there. They push as hard as they can. The metal door would give, and they get pennies and stick them in there to where, you know, the lean on the lock, you couldn't open your door. You were locked in. Nothing you could do. Another thing they loved doing is sometimes they would get one of the big, huge trash cans, those gray big ones, and fill up the water about 3/4 way full, lean against your door, knock on the door, and run. You open your door, and it floods your room. You know, that kind of crazy stuff.
Tsunami.
But we had, you know, just different things would come up. It was never, rarely things that were planned. It's just all of a sudden, someone's playing golf. They have to see how many strokes it takes to get from the 3rd floor to the basement into a cup in the basement. And, you know, so you're walking down the stairs and a golf ball goes by your head. And you're like, what the heck?
Not even a 4.
Oh, no. Oh, no. No
Why
4.
would they do that?
But yeah, always stupid, crazy things going on there.
So was Bear Bryant coach at this time?
Oh yeah,
The
yeah.
whole time you were there?
He was no, just for the first couple of years. He died while I was there.
Oh.
So he retired first and died a few months later.
Oh wow.
But that happened while I was there. So when I got initiated in the fraternity, it was those of us. You know, it's a ceremony down the basement, and it's just really part of people saying we knew were there. But the 3 people who were in attendance that were not part of who were not college kids at that point, my dad was there. He was an alumnus. Bear Bryant was there, and Bear Bryant's bodyguard were down there. So those are 3 that were watching us get initiated in the fraternity. So that's pretty cool.
And Alabama at this time, though, Bear Bryant rates where? I mean, there's ahead of the president, but below God, right?
Yeah, definitely ahead of the governor.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was big, very big. And the reason he was there is in my pledge class, his grandson was in my pledge class.
Okay.
So that's why he was at the initiation. But yeah, Bear Bryant was huge. It was huge. I think he was probably bigger than Saban as far as his notoriety and presence. I think maybe because of his tenure. I mean, Saban was there for I don't know how long, but Bear was there for decades.
Right.
As head coach.
Was football still a huge deal then as it is now, or
yeah,
bigger?
Probably bigger.
Yeah.
Because right now Alabama's decent in basketball, and we never were decent in basketball.
Right.
All we have is football.
Right.
So it was a big deal, very big.
Wow. So what was some of the traditions, or I mean, it was a southern. I didn't grow up in the South, so it was a southern university. What was some of the traditions or social life? What was that like there?
Well, at the university, the fraternity system made up about 15% of the campus, and our social life was pretty heavy around that. They would have free concerts from the university, but during the during the pledge time, going from certainly September through March, each Thursday night we'd have what's called a swap. And what they do is they get with a sorority and they say, okay, and these are scheduled well in advance. And it'd be like, okay, this week we're doing a swap with the Alpha Gams. So our, I believe it was the rush chairman, the guy that was in charge of, the pledge chairman, guy started pledges, and or the guy in charge of the entertainment for the fraternity and the sororities would get together and you'd have the pledges and they would be paired up for a blind date with the sorority girls. And you kind of got a feeling of where you stood with those guys when you met your blind date. Right. And it'd be like, wow, I guess I was okay with this guy this week. Yeah. And then some weeks you're going to go, oh, okay, this didn't go well at all, and
I got some work to do.
Yeah. And of course the same thing on the girls' side too. There's sometimes you get there and the girl's like, oh, I must have really pissed her off.
What did I do this week?
What did I do?
Did you live in the fraternity the whole time?
I did not. My first year, I lived in an apartment building, which living in the fraternity house would have been very, very difficult to pledge since you're really on call all the time.
Right.
That would have been very difficult. However, I remember when I moved into the fraternity, so we were there for like a couple of weeks before the pledge program started. So for a couple of weeks, you're just having a great time being a college kid and, this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
And I remember moving in and these two guys in the apartment next to me. And I introduced myself and they go, oh yeah, you're assuming new players. They go, we're assuming new actives. And they go, this is going to be great. And I'm like, how nice that they're so excited that, that I'm their neighbor. After that first night I told about, we got yelled and screamed at for cake and ice cream party. I drive into my apartment complex and I just shell shook and I pull up and then I see that their apartment's next to mine and I'm like, oh no, these guys are gonna be on me 24/7, and they were. So anyway, so the first year I was in an apartment and a guy from my high school who went to Alabama was my roommate, a guy named Arch. And I remember we looked at apartments, picked this one, it was on River Road, and the first night we're there, about 2 in the morning, we had 2 different bedrooms. About 2 in the morning, my whole room just lights up, and there's this god awful noise, and everything starts shaking. And I remember I ran out in the hallway, and Arch is there. We meet each other, and we're like, "What is this?" Well, it turns out we didn't look behind the apartment complex. There was a train track about 5 yards from our apartment building, and so every night at 2:30 in the morning, that train came through for that whole first year. So that was exciting.
You got used to it though.
You get used to it. But anyway, after that, the sophomore year, I did move into the fraternity house, and again, you're talking about that helps the grades go down because there's always something going on. You can always get distracted with stuff. You may have 25% of the guys studying, but the 75% aren't. And there are distractions to do. There are trouble to get in. Other thing is across the street from the fraternity house was our bar, Galette's. That's the one that we went to, Galette's. And so it's across the street. So, I mean, it's right there. I don't think any other fraternity house had that kind of thing.
Right.
And it's right there. So you just walk across the street, go to the bar, and
study.
They study all the time. I study there so much.
You got straight A's there.
So, on one hand, it's great because there's no drunk driving. We're walking across the street. The bad news is at 3 in the morning, we might go, we need food, and get a car and drive off to Baggett's truck stop, which is, 20 minutes away. So that was stupid.
Drunk.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Not good.
Not good.
Not good.
So, okay, where were you born?
Eutaw, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, actually, a hospital in Tuscaloosa, which is where the university is. But I grew up in Eutaw, Alabama, very small town.
Eutaw, the state.
No, Eutaw, the city. City is a strong word. Town. It's about 2,000 people. And Eutaw, it was in Greene County.
Okay. And
Greene County is the poorest county in Alabama.
Oh, wow.
Which is saying something.
Yeah.
Because
a lot of competition.
I mean, if one from Mississippi, thank God for Mississippi. Otherwise, we'd be 50th and everything. But yeah, so number one source of income to Eutaw around that time was welfare.
Mm.
So it was a very, very poor area I grew up in. Uh, but like I said, the school system was not good. They did the best they could, but it was really bad. Everybody in my family, cousins, everybody, we all went to boarding school. You knew it was coming. You were going to go to boarding school.
Right.
Uh, so coming around 10th grade is when I went off. My sister went off when my sister's older than me, about 5 or 6 years older than me. She went off when she was a junior. I went off when I was a sophomore.
She went to a different school?
She went to, that's one thing, my parents let us pick where we wanted to go. And she picked Marion Institute, which is probably about 20, 30 minutes from my home. But it was a military school, and they had like 900 men and 20 girls. So she had a great time for her junior and senior year.
Yes.
It was a blast for her. I went to Chattanooga. It was about 4 hours away from where I went to a school called Macaulay, which is a very, very good school.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the academics at that time at Macaulay were better than Alabama. You had teachers who were in it. They were going to teach, and they were going to make it interesting, and they were
Right.
the best teachers I ever came across. Those guys at Macaulay.
Right. Were you a good student?
I was not. When I was at the small school in Alabama, I made A's and B's, and that wasn't super cool to do. All the quote unquote, well, I won't say cool kids, but the popular kids made D's and F's.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to Macaulay, and I was trying, but it was hard. I went from a very bad school to a very, very good school, so I was behind.
Right.
Um,
How many people was in that school?
Macaulay, my graduating class was like 120.
Okay.
Macaulay went from, I think, like 5th grade up to senior. The border started in 9th grade. So the 5th through 8th grade were smaller classes than the 9th through 12th, because 9th through 12th added boarding students on.
And you went there in the 9th grade?
I went there 10th grade.
10th grade. Okay.
And was there 10th, 11th, and 12th. It was an excellent school. I was behind right off the bat. I remember that when I was looking at schools, I looked at 5 or 6 schools. Went to Marion, where my sister had gone, and they had me take an entrance test thing, and I aced it. And so they were all very excited, and I was like, I don't think I want to go somewhere that, I aced the test. And then went to Macaulay, and they gave me a math test, and I made a D on the math test. And I remember my parents were like, what? You made a D? And the guy who was the admissions officer, he looked at my parents and goes, he didn't study. We just sprung on him today. We're trying to see if he can do these equations, and we see what he got wrong, but he's fine. But it was a D. And so I went there, and again, academically, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
It was a fantastic school.
But what was it like being away from home? I mean, did you
It was tough. I got homesick for certainly the first year.
Yeah.
And
the whole first year?
a good chunk of it, yeah. Right. I mean, not homesick to the point that I was calling and saying, get me out of here, but,
right.
Counting down the days to Thanksgiving, counting the days to Christmas. The name of my first dormitory was North Hutch, and I was on the top floor of North Hutchinson, and we lost, I think, 75% of the floor. All got kicked out of the school. They were pretty big on no drugs, and people got kicked out left and right. We lost everybody.
What was the time period? When was this?
So that would have been
70s?
79-ish, I think.
Late 70s.
Yeah. So what had happened is we had, like I said, Macaulay started in freshman year. That's when you could do boarding. So all the freshman kids who had been there the year before, you can pick your dorm for the next year, and they all picked South Hutch. And so the new people were all in North Hutch. And so the new kids, some of them were, people going to boarding school, some of them were doing it to get better academics. Some of them were going because they had gotten in so much trouble at their current school, they had to go somewhere else. So the ones that had gotten into so much trouble, they were ending up there and were getting in trouble with drugs and stuff and getting kicked out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was I remember had the guy in charge of our dormitory, North Hutch, was called Mr. Lewis, and he was I won't say scary guy because he was kind of thin, but he was tough. He was tough as he could be. And I remember that they, at the end of the year, they have the annuals that come out, and they had famous quotes in the back. And I mean, one of them was about Mr. Lewis. Is the difference between Mr. Lewis and God is that God doesn't go around thinking he's Mr. Lewis, and that's kind of the truth. He kept wire cutters in his pocket, and if he could hear your stereo from outside the hall, he'd just walk in your room, clip the wires, and go right out. So yeah, he did not suffer fools very much.
Did they have sports teams there?
They did. They had a lot of sports teams. You had to do either a sports team or some kind of an activity like PE or intramural, I guess it was. My first year there, I did intramural. I didn't play any sports teams. I had considered football, but you had to. Football started 6 weeks before school started, and the idea of going and staying in a dorm 6 weeks of the summer just did not appeal to me.
Right.
So I ended up blowing that off. I ended up not signing up for that, and then just doing intramurals. And I did intramurals for the first year, and one of the guys got me and said, "Look, the way you're jumping and stuff, you really need to take a look at basketball next year." And so the next year, I did do basketball. I was on the B team of basketball the next year. And then that spring, and again, I don't want any smirking, but that spring I was on track team. I was thinner then, and ran the 440 and the 220. But again, more of a B team thing. Only really competed in a couple of meets. But that was good for me. That was very, very good for me. My senior year, I hurt my knees in non-sports things. That knocked me out of basketball. That knocked me out of track.
Yeah.
So I couldn't do that. I hurt them different times. They weren't the same time.
Right.
They were within like a week. Like I got out of the brace of one of them, then blew out the other knee. So that was a mess.
Tell me about your parents.
So mom and dad, they grew up in the area where I was from. My dad grew up in Eutaw, that little town. My mom was about 30 miles away in a town called Greensboro. My dad, he had two brothers and a sister, and the brothers were kind of hellions. They caused some problems in town, and they were known to be difficult. My aunt was kind of the Southern princess thing and doted on pretty heavy and the youngest, and so she got pretty special treatment. But the boys were rough and tough and caused all kinds of problems. And my dad and his older brother, Ralph, I think were pretty hard on their brother, Jamie, who was the youngest. And so, but they were just the prototypical, the high energy boys. Also went off to boarding school, fairly early. But my family they had a general store called Banks and Company, and that was something that some of them did. My uncle Ralph, which is the oldest, he ended up going into law. My dad wanted to do forestry. He wanted to work outside, but his dad ended up asking him to buy him out of Banks Company and take over part of Banks Company. So he did that. My uncle, my dad, Jamie, also did that. So they both did Banks and Company. And my dad, again, wanted to do more with land. My great uncle, or my great grandfather, I think it was my great grandfather, he had gotten a lot of land during the Depression. Before the Depression, he had lost a lot of money in the stock market and then swore he'd never do that again. So he built up some money from work and kept it in cash, would not invest in the stock market again. So then when the stock market crashed with that horrible crash, he was sitting with cash. And so Banks and Company, which was the store he had, would buy trees for their lumber. So they would sell lumber. So my great grandfather would go and buy the land instead and tell people, look, even though you have no money, you're still being taxed on this land. We'll just buy the whole thing from you, the trees and the land. So people did that. So he bought a lot of land. And so when my dad was coming up, when he was starting to do banks, before banks company, he wanted to plant trees on all the land. My great grandfather had cut it, but they really hadn't replanted it. So my dad went around replanting a lot of this land that the family had. And finally, his dad was kind of like, okay, you need to stop playing and now do real work. Well, planting those trees ended up making a lot of money for my family. Mm-hmm. Not just us, but my uncles and all of them did very, very well because of those trees my dad planted.
How much land was it?
Man, I don't know. I know that the portion that came from my father to me and my sister were going to be like 6,000 acres. Oh, my uncle has more than that, and so I bet my other uncle had similar amount, and my aunt had some. So you're probably talking 30,000 acres. I mean, there's a lot of land.
That is.
But when my dad got out of high school and he was signed up for Sewanee, which is a school in Tennessee, for college, and then the war started, World War II, and my dad ended up enlisting in World War II.
How old was he?
I think 17, 18, somebody. He was young.
Yeah.
And he went in and chose to do the Army Air Force. Back then, when Air Force was Army Air Force.
Right.
So he went over in Italy and was a tail gunner on B-24s, the B-24 Liberator.
The bombers.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And so he did his full tour and then got out. And
did he ever tell you much about what that
was? Some. Yeah, he did. He again, it was a very close group. You go through that kind of fear, you're going to get close with the people. He brought home flak and pictures and all kind of stuff. There are pictures that he took that was of the bombs hitting targets down there, and he'd bring home these pieces of flak, and he got the flak because it shot through the plane, and you just pick it up, and it's like crazy that was happening.
I was told a deterrent, or that was one of the most dangerous.
Yeah.
All the.
Yeah. He's a tail gunner, so you're right. That wasn't a great place to be.
No.
He saw some fighters, but never close enough to shoot at. And at that point, the war was heading our direction pretty well.
Right.
So they never engaged. Now the flak was a problem, and their plane did get hit by flak in an engine, and on the way back to base, and they had to drop out of formation because they couldn't keep up, and so they went down lower and had to just creep back. And by the time he got back to base, it took him like twice as long. His stuff was all gone. People had already broken his locker and taken all his whiskey and his food and stuff. They thought he was shot down. They were shot down, so all their stuff had been taken.
Oh, wow.
From it. But he was glad to do his tour, glad to get home, glad to be done with that.
Right. And then after he got back, then he went
to the University of Alabama, and and that was an interesting time. I'm surprised that you haven't had many books or movies made about that time, because he said that he became a Seminole, and that his pledge class, that when the actives got to them and said, hey, guess what? You're going to get hazed. And said the guy next to my dad said, I fought in the Battle of Bulge. Good luck. So you had these 19-year-old guys trying to haze these 22-year-old guys who had just fought Germans for several years, and like, that ain't going to work out well for you. You may want to rethink that strategy.
Let's consider this.
So it was interesting that you're going to have a group of people who, some of them were snot-nosed kids like me, in the same pledge class with people who had just fought in World War II for a few years. And so it's an interesting time. But also because, I don't want to say just because of that, but I think contributing to that is, while I was drunk for several years, probably all the years, and didn't take academics very seriously, my dad had been in war. And so you grow up pretty fast in war. So when he at University of Alabama, you know, he was all in on the academics,
I'm here
on the
to study.
grades. You know, he didn't have time for foolishness. Now there was some foolishness. You know, they at that time Tuscaloosa was dry, and so they had a still, and you know, he said that he'd be
Science project.
yeah, he'd say that he'd be walking the moonshine and it'll explode in your hand, and you got to be careful, that kind of stuff.
Right.
But still his grades were very good, and he never could understand why mine were so bad. And uh, but uh, but yeah, different time. But it's interesting because when I was in the fraternity, you know, yeah, you'd run into people that knew my dad. And one story I love is my dad was very nice. Dad and mom put me through college, so they paid for my college and gave me spending money. So it was very nice of them. I didn't have to get a job in college. And like I said, Dad was assuming new. Football games are huge. One football game, I'm getting ready, going to go to my date, and I have a bottle of Wild Turkey bourbon in my hand, which is decent bourbon. And I'm going down as fast as I can down the steps. I go around the corner, and I literally run into my father, literally bump into him. I'm like, Dad, you know, this is before cell phones and stuff. I'm like, hey, Dad, how you doing? He's carrying a bottle of early time bourbon, which is rot gut. So here I am with Wild Turkey. He's got this rot gut. He looks at my Wild Turkey, looks at his early time and goes, oh, hell no. Grabs my Wild Turkey, gives me the early time, and keeps walking. Doesn't say, how you doing? How are classes? He just takes the Wild Turkey, gives me the crappy bourbon, and keeps walking. By other times, I can remember when I was a pledge, I'm out in the front lawn, and my dad's there. I'm talking to him, and this active comes up. A guy's like 2 years older than me. And of course, you got hazing going on and stuff, but you don't do it in front of other people. But this active comes up with that guy's father. And that guy introduces himself. He goes, man, I want to tell you, I went to school with your dad, and I was a pledge, and he was active. He used to beat me. Holy cow. And I'm sitting there looking at his son, who's an active over me. I'm like, oh, no, this is really bad.
We got some squared
We got some
here.
problems. And then the guy went on to say, he goes, I'm going to tell you something your father did. He goes, your father taught me a trick, because what you did is he got a candle, and he broke the candle in half, and he put something on it that made I forgot what he said, but it made it burn faster, and said that Dad used to light that when you have someone, a female visitor, over at the fraternity house, and the candle would burn out real quick, and you know, and so this guy's going, your dad's a genius. They come up. Of course, Dad's looking at me like, oh, I'm sorry, you're telling him that story.
Let's move on. So when did he meet your mom? After college?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I believe it was at a wedding. My mother had actually, her first roommate was my dad's sister, my aunt. And they got along well enough. I don't think they got along great. They got along well enough. But he didn't meet her then. They went to some wedding, and they were both there together, and they met each other there. And like I said, they grew up very close to each other, being in Greensboro and Eutaw are very, very close to each other. My mom had gone to Alabama, but she only gone for a year or two, and then she met Dad. But they, you know, it was interesting because my father had a serious girlfriend before he met my mom, and they had just broken up, my dad and this girl, and then the girl died in a car wreck. Yeah, and so, you know, being the youngest, I don't know any of this kind of stuff. And I remember one time being in the attic of our house, and my sister's, she was probably older than me, a little bit older than me, and I find this picture of this girl. I go, who is this? And she's like, put that away, put that away, put that away. That's Dad's, you know, that was Dad's girlfriend before Mom, and she died in a car wreck. And you know, don't show that around.
One of those stories we don't bring up.
Yeah, we don't talk about that.
Yeah. Did your dad's mom and dad like your mom?
I never knew either of my grandfathers. They had both passed away by the time I was born. My grandmother on my dad's side loved her kids dearly, and it's weird because in some ways you say, especially the boys, but I think she and my aunt butted heads a lot, but my grandmother made sure my aunt was taken care of. She, you know, they got along when they talked, they would butt heads, but my grandmother made sure my aunt was in a really good position. Uh, but my grandmother was extremely crazy about her boys. And so, therefore, the wives had it a little bit harder with my grandmother. Uh, I know that there's a story that they were all out in a boat, and there weren't enough life preservers. And my grandmother said, "Boys, put on life preservers. Girls, if anything goes wrong, hold on tight." So she wanted her boys taken care of, and if the girls, were or not, and it translated down to me too, to the kids, because I remember we were looking at suits, at Banks and Company, and there's a brown one and a blue one. And my mom says, "You need the blue one." I said, "I think the brown one's better." She goes, "No, you want the blue ones when you need." And my grandmother comes up, and my mom goes, "I think you should get this." And my grandmother goes, "Well, he would look good in that." And I said, "I like the brown one." And she goes, "Well, you like that because you're right." That's right in front of my mom. Just like, whatever the guys are going to say,
right.
she is on board with.
Oh, wow.
On my mom's side, my grandmother had been significantly younger than her husband. I think when they got married, he was 40, she was 20.
Oh, wow.
But she was a very, very sweet, very sweet. On my dad's side, I wouldn't call my grandmother super warm. She loved us, but my mom's mom was super warm, and very, very sweet lady. And she ended up moving to Eutaw. My dad's mother also lived in Eutaw, but you go there, spend the night, and that kind of stuff. And she had the bowl of M&Ms, and you do things and get the M&Ms and all that stuff. It was very nice.
Was family a big deal?
It was. Every Sunday night we'd go to my dad's mom's house, to my grandmother. Every Sunday night you're there, and it was the uncles there. So my aunt lived in Atlanta, but my dad's brothers lived in Eutaw. And so every Sunday night you'd go there. It would be the brothers, it would be their wives, it'd be their kids. So of their kids, my cousins, I'm the youngest of that group, which can be a little hard, except the oldest one of the cousins is my cousin Jamie Reynolds, a girl named Jamie Reynolds, and she was fine. There was no issue. She was sweet enough. Below her, you had Rip and Jamie. And to this day, I don't know which one's older. They're around the same age, and they were a piece of work. They were rough.
Rip and Jamie,
Rip and Jamie were rough, and they made my sister and Jamie's brothers, John. They made their lives a living hell.
Oh, wow.
They were rough on them, but I was younger, and they gave me no trouble at all. They were good with me. Other thing is that Seal and John were interested in different things.
Seal,
my sister Seal, were interested in different things. When I was coming up, I loved football from the very beginning, and so I talked football with them, and we would debate different things, but it was never anything dumb. It was always that I knew what I was talking about, they knew what they were talking about, and we'd get along okay. But they were very hard on Seal and John. I can remember when I was older. I remember I was 16, and at that point, my Jamie was working at Banks Company. He was buying into Banks Company, so he was probably 23, 24, I'm guessing, and Seal would have been 21, 22. And Seal needed a truck to go move something, and so we go to see Jamie and to borrow his truck. And Seal goes, "Hey, can I borrow your truck?" He goes, "Yeah, sure, you can borrow my truck." He has the keys. And he goes to her and he goes, "You know how to drive a shift, right? You can do a standard, right?" And she goes, "I'm gonna keep it in first." And so he gives me the keys and goes, "Don't let her touch my truck," But even then they gave her grief the whole time.
Oh,
she's like, "I need to drive." She goes, "No, he drives a Jeep. He can handle my truck. You'll destroy my truck. You can't drive my truck." But yeah, always had no issue with Rip and Jamie. Seal and John had some issues with those guys.
Was there any other schools in Alabama, or was just Alabama?
I think that's the only one,
that's the only
if
one
I remember correctly. maybe something called Auburn.
Auburn,
which, is
you guys get along with them?
We do not get along with Auburn at all. No. If Auburn's playing the Taliban, I'm for the Taliban. Yeah, I just,
Go
yeah.
Taliban.
And of course, they got other schools there too. You got Western Alabama and South
Alabama
Alabama,
A&M or
that kind
something
of
like that,
stuff,
yeah.
and Samford, not Stanford, Samford. I remember I looked at that school. My parents, I had my colleague, it was one I looked at, and on the library, I'm walking there, and on the outside door, they had a cigarette with the circle and line through it. And I'm like, if they can't read here, this isn't the school for me. The lady showing us around didn't think it was funny. I thought it was hilarious. She didn't think it was funny at all. But yeah,
Were you closer to your dad or your mom?
growing up, I did not interact a lot with my dad, even though we were in the same house and stuff. But he went to Banks and Company and worked. We always thought that he really liked it, and he was kidding. He didn't like it a bit. He did it for all those years and hated it.
Oh, wow.
But so he would come home and read the paper and sleep, and then get the next day and do it again. So knew my mom better first. When I got older, around 23, 24 years old, my dad and I got very, very close and stayed very close until he passed away. But my mom not as much. She, as you get older, you learn things about your parents, and I say my mom had a black belt in passive aggressive. She would say things, little digs, and it's like, oh, that's not good. I see her do it to my sister and me, and like, cut it out. My dad, I don't remember my dad ever doing any of that kind of junk. He was very straightforward. If he has something to say, he's going to say it to you, and not aggressive at all. Very, very laid back. My family drank, but very rarely would you see them intoxicated. I saw my dad like twice a year intoxicated. They had a party out at the lake by our house, and they would go out there. His investment club would have a party, and he'd have a few too many there. But beyond that, you'd never see him drunk. Even though he drank, very constantly. Like maybe most days he'd have a beer, and then at my grandmother's on Sunday night, they'd have scotch. They'd give us scotch ice. They get through the drink and give you the ice, and so get us going at an early age with the taste of scotch.
Scotch ice.
Scotch ice.
Yeah,
yes,
not
it's when
necessarily
the
scotch.
Yep, scotch. I mean, it was in the scotch.
It's like a snow cone.
Yeah, like very
Scotch.
similar. Very, very, very similar.
What was it like growing up in Alabama in the 60s and 70s?
Yeah, it was. Looking back on it, it was messed up in
Yeah.
some ways. I can remember going to the doctor's office, and there was a white waiting room and a black waiting room.
Oh, wow.
In the public pool, you go in there, but you wouldn't swim if there are black people in there. It was very, very segregated, very, very messed up for that stuff. We were there when there were marches, but very, very strange. I know that when my daughter had to do a project in her school about the civil rights movement, and my uncle sent pictures. Oh, here's some I took, and it was like, holy, it's firsthand. Yeah, that's right there.
Right.
Stuff.
That's Eutaw. How far away is that from Selma, Alabama?
You're probably talking 2 or 3 hours from Selma, but
that same area though.
Yeah. But I mean, you're talking about Eutaw, probably 75% African American, 25% white.
Was it an integrated school? Or?
No. The school I went to, a private school, it was segregated. You had the public school, and you had the one I went to, the private school.
And then you went to boarding school after that.
Went to boarding school after that, and that one was segregated. I mean, that one was integrated.
How did it make you feel to go away to school?
Yeah. Again, it helped that I knew it was coming. It was. I think knowing from the very beginning this is coming at you. You're just not really sure when it's coming. I would, at the time, I'd rather it not have happened. Looking back on it, I wouldn't change it. Again, the teachers were amazing, really, really amazing. They were quirky. Had a guy, Mr. McKenzie, one of my first classes I ever went to, and he was teaching geometry. And this guy was probably, looking back on it, probably my age, but at the time I thought this guy was, going to kill over any minute. had these huge Mr. Magoo type glasses on, and he's teaching geometry. And with about 10 minutes left in class, one of the guys raised his hand. They called him Goo. I don't remember why, but his name was Goo. And they go, Goo, it's 10 minutes left in class. And he goes, oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And he sits down at his desk, opens the drawer, and brings out Winnie the Pooh and starts reading Winnie the Pooh to the class. And I'm looking around like, what in the hell is going on? The guy next to me goes, he reads Winnie the Pooh into every class. It's just a thing. He does it. And I was like, okay. And so for the rest of that year, whenever got to be 10 minutes left, he'd read Winnie the Pooh to us. Left that class, went to English, and one of the assigned readings we'd had was Sound of the Fury by William Faulkner. And I have that book with me when I go to class, and I'm sitting next to this other person I don't know, and the guy goes, you ever had a class with this guy? I said, this is my second class, my college period. And he goes, he thinks he's Faulkner. Don't say anything about it, he thinks he's Faulkner. And I go, he doesn't think he's, what are you talking about? This guy walks in, has the mustache, has the pipe, has the exact same type jacket as Faulkner. Like, he does think he's Faulkner, and he did think he was Faulkner. And so it's like, God, these people are bizarre. I went to a history class a few weeks later, and we're doing the Civil War, and my history teacher walks in a Confederate uniform to teach the class. And it's like, okay, here we go.
This will be interesting.
But again, these guys knew their stuff. Great teachers. I mean, I think all teachers probably know their stuff, but these guys know it so well, they can give it to you in a way that is fun, informative, and it sticks with you. Didn't have that in college so much, but at Macaulay, it was amazing.
So then you're at Alabama. What were you studying at Alabama? Well,
I started off in business school, and the whole drinking and not studying thing didn't make that go super well.
What?
I know. One of my favorite things is I had walked this girl home from a party, and it was, I was drunk, and
seemed like a theme we're got.
I know. Okay. Walking back, and it was about 8 a.m, and I'm walking back. I know, and I'm still feeling it. And I said, it'd be a hoot. My economics class is at 8 a.m, and I've been twice this year. It'd be a hoot. Why don't I show up for that? That would be funny. So I go into my economics class, 8 a.m, and the teacher looks at me like, who the heck are you? And they hand out a test. It's a test day. I had barely even been in the class. I hadn't done any homework, and I'm drunk. And they have me a test. So that nightmare you have where you wake up at, they hang out a test and you're not prepared for it, I lived it, and I lived it drunk. I know, even in the dream, you're not drunk.
The worst thing is that was probably your best grade all year.
It was not a good performance.
No.
It was not a good performance at all. But another one I'll tell you real quick is this was later on, and this wasn't a drinking thing. This is back when I was taking the stuff seriously, but I had taken so much Spanish because the Spanish classes in Macaulay were so strong. They used the same textbooks at Alabama for Spanish 101, 102, 201, 202 were the exact same textbooks I had for junior and senior Spanish at Macaulay. And so I took those. I still had all the answers in the textbooks, and so I skated through it. Took another class that was not as easy, didn't have the textbooks, and we needed one more class for a minor. So I took that class. The girl I was dating at the time was in the class with me, and it was bad. I needed one class for the minor, and I needed this class, and this guy didn't like me, and my performance was bad. And I was trying at that point. I wasn't doing the whole drunk thing at that point. But I didn't have a strong basis in Spanish, and so we were going to the final exam, and I needed like a 92 to get a D. It was that bad.
Oh wow! And
so my fraternity had a teacher appreciation night. They do each semester, and there's someone that you're on the fence with. Well, I wasn't on the fence with anybody. I was in criminal justice at that point, and my grades were rock solid. I was strong A or a middle B, where a few points here or there are going to help. And I'm like, I'll invite the Spanish guy to come. Anything will help me. And he agreed. He came, and it was so awkward at first. Is he didn't know what to say, I didn't know what to say, and we didn't get along. We had dinner, and then the bar opened. The bar at the house, they had open bar, and we started hitting Jack Daniels together. And he goes, "So where are you from?" And I said, "Well, I'm from Eutaw, right up here." He goes, "Oh, I'm from Greensboro." I'm like, "Oh, my mom grew up in Greensboro." Turns out he had a huge crush on my mom and my aunt growing up, more so my aunt, I think. He starts telling stories about my mom and my aunt, and he starts telling high school stories, and he drinks more and more, and we start laughing and crying, laughing so hard we're crying. And anyway, so I had no idea it was going to turn out that way, and so I get to the exam, and the exam's a disaster. It's an absolute disaster. I do the best I can, and I got the first question, name. Beyond that, it was iffy. And so it's like, well, that didn't go well. Well, a few days later, they posted the scores, but they didn't post the exam scores. They posted the final score that you got in the class. My girl I was dating at that point, not really girlfriend, but I was dating her, and she had like a middle C going into the exam. And we get there, and she ends up with a D. And so she is devastated. It's a passing, but still it's a crappy score.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a B+, which there's no mathematical way that could happen. There's no mathematical way I could get a C. She was furious because we were together looking at the scores.
So the moral of the story is
drink heavily with the people who you're
that used to date your mom.
Yeah, exactly. And then they had a crush on your mom.
That's always good.
But yeah, so anyway, to get back to the original question was, I started off in business school. My immaturity didn't have me last there real long. And I got an invitation from the University of Alabama to leave the school because of my grades.
What?
Yeah. They're saying, you have performed so amazingly, this may be the place for you to
spread this
around. Exactly. You should go somewhere else. So I ended up going to the criminal justice dean and said, hey, can you let me in your school? These guys are kicking me out of business and I want to stay. I'm going to turn it around. And he's like, I'll give you a shot. So he signed the thing that let me stay in school. So I went in criminal justice, and that'll kind of slap you into reality.
Mm-hmm.
So I did buckle down, started going to classes. Grades, my grades were so low going into it, but still, I made A's and B's from there. So everything started trending back up, which was good. But I did do criminal justice.
And what were you hoping with that?
I really didn't have a great plan.
But you're still in school.
I was still in school, but when I graduated, I went to, I was about to graduate. I went to the dean and I'm like, hey, I got this degree coming up. What do I do with this thing? He had a binder like this of jobs, criminal justice jobs. And it was like, police, Anderson, Alabama, $18,000 a year. Police, Bessemer, $20,000 a year. And I got to Carrollton, Texas, and it's $32,000 a year. Like, we're going to Texas. So I applied at San Jose, California, Arlington, Texas, and Carrollton, Texas. Flew out to San Jose, went through their process. What I didn't know at the time is they had like 20 spots open and had 500 people applying. They didn't put down the brochure. So didn't get that. It's funny because the recruiter called me back after I'd gone out there and they'd filled the spots. And they go, I'm looking at your transcript and you got a minor in Spanish. I'm like, I do. He goes, if you're fluent and can speak Spanish, you should have put that on your application. That will help you. And I'm like, can't really speak it, but the teacher knew my mother and had a crush on her. But he was like, you should put it on your application. Like, I'm not sure that minor is as good as you think it is. But I was applying at Carrollton and Arlington. I was going through the process of both of them, and Carrollton offered me the job first. So I snatched it up and dropped out of the Arlington process, and so I became street police officer in Carrollton.
So what was it like coming from Alabama to Texas?
Well, again,
different atmosphere, wasn't it?
Yeah, different atmosphere, but in some ways it was similar because when I went from McCallie to Alabama, I didn't know hardly anybody then. So now I'm going from Alabama to Texas, and they don't know anybody here either.
Right.
In some ways similar in that Carrollton had probably hired 5 or 6 of us at the same time that went through the police academy, and the police academy was a regional one. So you had different departments going through the same academy you're going through. So you got a little cohesive group that you're getting to know. And so we go to this class every day, and it was over in Grand Prairie. So we would carpool together. So you get to know these people. So you got to know people pretty quick, and that was nice. Other thing is, like I said, Dad put me through college, so I had never, I didn't really work during college. in high school, I would have summer jobs. I worked at Banks Company 1 year, worked for the land manager. People that manage our land a couple of summers. It was hot as hell in August, July, August in Alabama. But it was my first time working for a real paycheck. And got my first paycheck, and I do the budget, and it looks like that with my apartment, utilities, everything, I'd have about, $40, $50 left over. And it's like, that's fine. As time goes on, I'm sure I'll make more, and this will work out. About 3 weeks later, I get a phone call, and it's the front desk sergeant. He goes, "Banks, your paycheck's here. It's been here for a week." I go, "No, sir, I picked that up, about 4 weeks ago. I picked that thing up." He goes, "We get paid every 2 weeks." I go, "That check I got wasn't a monthly check. That's for every 2 weeks." And he started cussing at me. He goes, "I'm paying child support to 2 different women. I have no money. You didn't even know you had another paycheck coming." He goes, "Shut the hell up and get up here and get this check." So anyway, so it was, for me, I was like shocked at the amount of money I was getting at that point, because I didn't have bills. I didn't owe anybody anything.
You were Dave Ramsey before there was.
I know. It was like, what do I do with this? So it was great. Luckily, I saved most of it. But yeah, so doing that, going through the police academy. We got to the police academy. The next part of our training was that they put us with a training officer. So he had 3 different months of training at Carrollton with 3 different training officers. And that was interesting, as it turns out, because none of them were even close to the same. First guy I got with, that was my training officer, the first one, I hate to say it, but kind of a dweeb guy, very much a rule follower. They want us to wear a hat, we're wearing a hat. We do it this way, we're doing it this way. It was very much by the book, and not much. It wasn't a great experience, but I got through the month. Second month, I went from day shift to night shift, which means you go from like 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. They gave me a guy named Bill Chapaton, who Chapaton was in his 50s when he was my training officer. He had been a undercover cop up in the Detroit area.
Oh, wow.
Infiltrating a motorcycle gangs. Big guy. He had won the Mr. USA, whatever his bodybuilding thing for his age category. He was ripped, strong guy. And he had done this and had done, quote unquote, real police work for years, and then came to Carrollton, which is a suburb of Dallas. So he didn't care about the minutia. I remember the first time I'm going to call him, put my hat on, he goes, "Take that effing hat off. What are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, I said it. I've been with this other guy who every time I didn't do it, he wrote me up." He's like, "Take that off. That's ridiculous." But our very first call, I'm in the car with him, and they get a call that there's a shooting. This guy got shot. And Chapaton goes, "I'm going to take that for training." It's a radio. "I'm going to take that for training." And he goes, welcome to the night shift. And we head off to go work this shooting. This guy got shot by his girlfriend. That was my first call with Chapaton.
Oh, wow.
And Chapaton, when things don't go right, when there are possible problems, you have to write what we call a Dear Chief letter. And after I got through my training, I remember writing 3 Dear Chief letters, because I wrecked the car 3 different times for various reasons. And so I had to write a Dear Chief letter when that happened. That month with Chapaton, I think I wrote 8 Dear Chief letters. He and I were both writing Dear Chief letters, and Chapaton just,
He had it mimeographed.
He
Fill in the blank.
He attracted it, and some of it's on him. Great guy. He's passed away now. Great guy. But like that first call we go and we're talking to the boyfriend in the hospital. He's gotten shot in the head, grazed his head, and stuff, and hit it, And he's saying, I'm not pressing charges. He goes, "I love her," and he's like, "She shot you." He goes, I'm not pressing charges against her. I won't do it." He turns to the nurse and goes, "No pain medication for the, don't give him any pain medication, this idiot." Well, he got shot in the head. They couldn't give him pain medication anyway, and Chapaton knew that, but he's still trying to jack with him. And Chapaton goes, "I want you to know that I'm going to go talk to her right now, and you're not pressing charges. I'm going to teach her how to squeeze the trigger and aim better. So next time she kills you. Like, you're an idiot. You shouldn't be out amongst us. You're an idiot. You're not. But anyway, that wasn't even a dear chief letter. But I remember one time we had this. Again, a domestic thing. We arrested the girl and the guy, and so they're in separate cells in Carrollton, and the guy is just wailing and just, I love you so much, and if you're breaking up with me, I'm going to kill myself. And so we go there, and he's got his shirt, and he has tied it around his neck, and he's tied it to the bars, but he's sitting on the ground, and there's no tension there. He's like, I'm doing it right now, I'm doing it. And Chapatin goes in the cell, goes, let me help you, grabs his feet and pulls them to where now it's tight. And then he's like, help, help, help. He goes, you want to die? You want to die? I'll just, well, the lieutenant comes in, and that was a dear chief letter. That was a dear chief letter. That was one of them. Another one, and this wasn't during the training, but we had Chapatin had an arrest, a DUI arrest, and you put them in this little room, and they have the breathalyzer there, and they're filming the whole thing while this is going on. They have to read the paper. Well, this guy is just jawing at Chapatin the whole time. And again, he's jacked. Why are you messing with Chapatin? He's huge. And he's just calling him this and that and whatever it is. And of course, they had the film. We're watching this on the computer. They told us that you got to watch this. And this guy's just giving Chapatin just, you blankety blank, blah, 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 blah. At one time, Chapatin looks up at the camera, and you see, whoo, the camera, he knocks the camera where it's facing the floor, and you hear, stop. And a few minutes later, the camera goes up, the guy's just, is just been beaten to hell.
So he listened.
Yeah.
He listened with love.
But another Chapatin one I loved was that we were on I-35 running radar, and we pulled this guy over in a pickup truck. And this guy gets out and walks back to us, which isn't a good idea. But we meet him, and the guy goes, officers, I am speeding. I know I'm speeding. I'm on a blind date. It's the ugliest woman I ever been with in my life. And I'm just trying to get this thing over. And Chapatin goes, if she's ugly, I'm going to let you go. So Chapatin walked up to the driver's side, did the flashlight, and go, have a good night. Slow it down. I'm like, I hope that one is his wife.
What was the worst part of being a policeman?
The worst part, I think, was what happens. For me, there was it was too much of a bubble, because we worked weird hours, and I had weird days off. I started off like Monday, Tuesday off, or Tuesday, Wednesday off. And so the only people you're socializing with are police, because you're in this weird timing thing. And so when you're off work, so are the other people on your shift, and you don't meet anybody else hardly, and there's no social life and dating. And so that was one thing that was a mess. What ended up making me, I realized early on that the police work wasn't for me, and the reason was, with the people in Carrollton, you're talking probably 70% of them were like me. They were fine, did a good enough job. 15% really shouldn't be policemen. They were doing it for the wrong reasons. They were jerks trying to, make up for being bullied as kids or whatever. But 15% of them were amazing, and they loved the job. And they should be doing the job, and they were great at it. And those are the ones where I went, wow, I really shouldn't be working with these guys. These guys, I'm not holding up my end of the bargain. They are so good at this. And so I need to find something that I'm as passionate about as these guys are about this job. It's embarrassing that I'm doing enough to get by, and these guys are all in, and I need to find something that I'm passionate about. I remember when one of those guys was a friend of mine named Mike Kelly, great guy. But one night, I'm going into, I think it must have been day shift, but I called in sick. My stomach was messed up, and I'm like, Sarge, I shouldn't be in today. I've got my stomach's messed up, and I think it's gonna be a problem, and I'll see how I am tomorrow, but I'm calling in. So next day I go in, and I'm in briefing, which we do before the shift starts. And then comes Mike Kelly. He's on my shift. Great guy, a good friend of mine. And he's got, he's busted up. His face is busted up, and he's got a little bit of a limp. And I'm like, what? You okay? He goes, I'm fine. It's all right. I'm fine. He sits down, and Sergeant comes in, and Sergeant looks up, and he goes, Kelly, should you be here? And Kelly goes, I'm fine. He goes, you got run over by a car yesterday. Should you really be here? He goes, I'll be fine, Sarge. And he goes, Banks, how's your tummy? I'm good, Sarge. Thanks for asking.
Run over by a car weekly.
Oh, I know.
You're not. But my tummy. Oh, wow. Did you have to do a lot of paperwork or anything like that?
There was some paperwork, and my handwriting, that's a problem because it was my handwriting's horrific.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember if you had something like a theft, burglary, it was a yellow form you had to fill out, and the front half was just fill in the blank for the most part of name and what happened. In the back, you had to write a narrative about what happened. There was a form you had to do for it was a traffic accident, and there were several different forms. Now it's all computerized. It'd be so much easier now.
Right.
But I remember you had a green form, a blue form, you had the yellow form, and I had to have liquid paper. You had to get that for all of them. You had to have the blue liquid paper and the green liquid paper and
white out.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. But yeah, and of course you had traffic tickets, which you had to mess with, which I wrote very, very few. I was there for 6 years to the day, and all my evaluations, every one of them talked about my handwriting and my lack of writing tickets. That was.
Was that a big deal? I mean, because we always hear about they want you to write a lot more.
It was a big deal. They tell you it wasn't, but it was, because while my tickets were super low, there were like contact cards. If you made contact with somebody, you can write those. You can fill those out. I wrote a ton of those, especially on deep nights. If people were out and about at 2 or 3 in the morning in one of my neighborhoods, I was going to find a legal reason to pull them over. Hard to drive anywhere without messing up somehow. Mm-hmm. And I'd pull them over and, fill out that card about who they are, where they were, that kind of thing. But I just didn't write tickets that much. And so even though my activity was super high, my tickets were super low, and that was not a good thing.
Right. Anything gruesome you ever came across?
Oh, a lot. Yeah, I came across a lot of gruesome things. You had to get to the point where you become desensitized to it, so borderline inappropriate because of it. Mm-hmm. But again, my buddy Mike Kelly and I, we're in the area. It's somebody else's call, but they were tied up. It's somebody else's district, and we have a shots fired. And it's like, okay. So we head to this trailer park where these shots are fired, and someone heard a gunshot. Then we get another call, and they said, we have a different trailer in that area that just had a bullet go through it. So we've got more shots fired. Bullet went through the trailer. And we're like, okay. So we're still heading that way. And then we get another call where they're saying, okay, someone called from that trailer park 5 minutes ago saying they were killing themselves. And, we were trying to talk them down. We didn't send an officer, but now we have shots fired and we've got shots going into this trailer. So we get there and we get the trailer, and sure enough, this dude had gotten a high-powered rifle and had put it under his chin, and that bullet had gone through 2 other trailers going out. Oh, wow. And so at this point, it looks like what's happening, but you got to make sure what's happening in there. And this is I'm sorry I'm telling the story. I'm sorry the way it goes. But the thing is that we've got to search that trailer because we don't know anybody else is in there. Are they hurt? Are they dead? So we go in there, and you're doing your best because it's a crime scene. And as I am stepping, I hear a crunch, and I'm like, "What did I just step on?" And his teeth. I've got his teeth embedded on my shoe, and Kelly is going, yeah, I got his mustache on mine. And so we're trying to search this trailer, meanwhile trying not to drag teeth and mustache across the thing. He's got a newspaper over his head where he did it. But he was like, golly. Uh, so you get that kind of stuff, but you get desensitized, which isn't good to it. I can remember uh, learning lessons. Where now, if you're ever in a car with me, I'm in a seatbelt, and one of the reasons is I can remember going up I-35. I'm going to a to a wreck, and I come across this car. I can't tell you what kind of car it was. I couldn't even tell. This thing had hit a wall. Must have been flying. And so this is a car that looks like it's been through one of those compactors. I mean, it is like this big. And I get that, and I am running to that car, and I can't. And I'm trying to get to a person, to the people in there, and it's just like, this is crazy. I don't even see anybody. And this guy behind me, he goes, "Are you looking? Can I help you?" And he goes, "What are you looking for?" I said, "I'm looking for the people. I'm looking for." And he goes, "Oh, it's me. I did that. That's my car. I'm the only one in the car." I'm like, "Are you hurt?" He goes, "No, no, I'm fine." I'm looking at the car. I'm looking at this guy. I'm like, "You've got to be kidding me." He goes, "No, no, I'm fine." And I walked away. And I would have bet you everything I had that was a fatality. About 2 months later, I get a call, Carrollton, Marsh, and Trinity Mills, that a car ran off the road. I go there. This car had run off the road and hit a barbed wire fence. And so I get there, and this got streaks down where that barbed wire fence had messed up the paint job some, but not a big deal. I get there, and that dude didn't have his seatbelt on, and he was dead. He had hit the steering wheel in such a way that little bitty wreck killed him. The guy 2 weeks earlier had hit a wall doing over 100 and walked away. So that seatbelt, I was like, I'm a believer.
Right.
I'm a believer in the seatbelt, because that guy just had a minor little wreck and it killed him.
Wow. So you were only there 6 years?
There 6 years of the day. When I was there, because I'd already started my travel agency about 3 years in, and the travel agency wasn't going great, and I wanted to jump over and give it a good shot, give it my best shot. But at 6 years in Texas, at least at that point, if you got 6 years, you got your advanced certificate. So that make it really easy to get back at a job somewhere, please, if this didn't work out. So I waited till I was 6 years, and then I jumped over to a travel agency to do that full time.
Okay. Why a travel agency? I mean, normally you don't see cop, I mean, maybe private eye or something like that.
Yeah.
But cop to travel agent?
Well, it wasn't great research.
We have a theme going here.
I knew early on that I didn't want to be police. I figured that out, and I had saved this money because I was making a lot more than I thought I was going to make. So I saved it, and I love traveling. So I was traveling some when I would get my vacation time from the police department. And I used a travel agency, and I realized they didn't do anything. They, I would book the trip with them, but they would never follow up with me. They'd never call and find out how the trip went.
Right.
They'd only talk to me again next time I go to book another trip. And so I'm like, must be a pretty easy market if they can survive and give that poorly of service. So I went to school. When I wasn't doing police, I found a travel school that would teach you to be a travel agent. So I did that.
They have those?
They used to. I don't know if they got them anymore or not. But I did that, and then I opened mine from scratch, which that's costly lessons there.
Yeah. You
make a lot of mistakes early on with that. But that's how I got there. Is not wanting to do police work, enjoying travel, feeling like it's maybe a little bit of a weak market, and getting in there and trying to build from there.
So you enjoy travel. What do you mean by travel? Is that like
leisure travel for the most part?
Well, no, I mean, but like New Mexico.
Yeah. Well, typically, you're going to Mexico. Back then, I'd go to Greece. I went to Greece from there. Went to tours in Europe. Did cruises, that kind of stuff. I remember before I did the travel agency, I was police, but I hadn't done the travel agency yet, and hadn't met my wife yet. Went on a cruise, Carnival cruise, and so years later, I'm married, and my wife is cleaning out a box of pictures, and it's a picture of me on this cruise. I have a girl on each arm, and she's like, you look so happy. You never smile like that. So you don't have dark circles under your, what is the deal? And I'm like, it's just the light catching me, I think. I don't think I'd read too much into that.
Let's put that away. Right
yeah. But yeah, so I enjoy the travel. I do Europe, I do cruises, that kind of stuff. I do Jamaica. And so now my agency sells that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And now I travel a lot more than I want to now.
Right.
Now I'm traveling too much almost.
So how long has this been? How long have you had the business now?
We started in '89. So that's going to be.
Don't make me do math.
Me too. I'm right there with you. What is that? 30? I don't know. What is that? 30? I don't know.
Okay. We'll
34? I don't know.
We'll go with it.
I don't know what it is.
What in all those years? I know you traveled a lot. Now you say you met your wife.
Mm-hmm. So Kathy was when I first met her, she was called a PBX operator. Don't know what that stands for. At Carrollton. So she worked at Carrollton, and she was in the dispatch area.
Oh, for the police
For
department.
the police department.
All right.
When I met her, and then she became a dispatcher. When I first met her, her schedule was horrific. I'd complain because every month I'd have to change my shift. I'd go from night shift to day shift to evening shift every month and adjust your calendar. She did that every week. She'd have a couple of days day shift, a day of night shift, a day of evening shift. It'd be like crazy. Every week she was having to change back and forth. But anyway, so she did that. Then she became a dispatcher after that. Moved up to that, and she enjoyed that more. But looking back on it, it's just so crazy that she quit the police department and went to work at Legacy Travel before I did.
Legacy Travel is what you started.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so she did that before I did, and we weren't even married. We were dating, and she took that leap of faith, which was amazing looking back on the way that happened. But yeah, so it was good that we met that way through the police department. So have some common grounding on what I was going through, what she was going through with that job. But when she was dispatcher, it'd be funny because sometimes she would work when I'd work, and so she's telling me to go places. It hadn't changed much now. She still tells me where to go, what to do. But back then she would, she'd do a call, and sometimes she would. You could tell that thing was upsetting her. I remember one time a lady called because her lady's husband was beating her baby. He was beating the baby. And it's like, okay. And I could tell her voice, and she was like, I said, I'm getting there. I'm not far away. I will get there. So I went lights and sirens, went flying down there to where they were. Turns out the baby was 19 and 6'3" and weighed about 260 and was holding his own pretty well against Dad. So
baby.
one exactly. Right. When lady said he's beating my baby, it wasn't an infant. It was a 6'3", 270 grown man that they were going at it pretty good. So not exactly, but told Kathy, he's okay.
He's okay. So, all right. So why do you? What was one of your first trips when you had you owned your Legacy Travel?
Well, one of my first trips, I went to a conference down in Florida, and like happens so often with me, my flight's significantly delayed. So I got in to my hotel at about 1 a.m. And so I go up to my room, and of course it's dark, pitch black in there. I open the door, and I see I have a room that's a connecting room. So they got that door in there, the other one, and that door's ajar. And I'm like, oh, that's not good. That's creepy. So I close that door as quietly as I can because, that's just weird. And I don't want to be accused of doing anything weird or that. Next morning, I wake up, get ready for my conference, and I'm gone all day. I mean, these conferences are breakfast through dinner, then you have cocktail parties, and then after parties. So you're doing all this stuff. I get back to the room about 11:30, and that door's ajar again. And I'm like, the maids are trying to get me in trouble. So I close it again. Same thing the next night. So now I'm leaving the conference the next day, and this is like the day 3 or 4. And this is back when the keys was were keys. This wasn't even before the cards. This is when you get them actual keys to the room. And this key ring had a little mini bar key on it. And so I called down the front desk and said, I've got this mini bar key, but I can't find the mini bar. Where is this thing? And they go, where are you? I said, I'm on my bed on the phone. And they go in the other room of your suite and look in there. That's where, so it wasn't a connecting room. I had a suite the whole time. I had no idea. So I had 30 minutes left in this room, and I opened up, there's a recliner, a big screen TV, mini bar, and I hadn't gotten to enjoy any of it. So, you know, a rookie in the travel business.
You have learned though.
I learned. So that was my first trip. Fell in love with Riviera Maya pretty quick, which is south of Cancun. That's an area that I still love a lot. Going there, the people are fantastic. The resorts are very, very nice. So I'll learn that early on. That was a great place to be. When we first started Legacy Travel, we were a corporate travel agency. That meant we sold mainly airline tickets to corporations. And we were in that uncomfortable position where 80% of our business came from one company. And, you know, it's great business until you lose it. And eventually you lose it. And so that was always uncomfortable. Kathy would go out and get new business. She was very good at that. I didn't have the temperament for that. I would tend to get angry during those calls. So she stopped taking me. But she did a good job going out and getting corporate business for us. But we had to reinvent ourselves a few times. One thing, the airlines got to the point where they didn't really like working with travel agents, and life's too short to work with people who don't want to work with you. So we ended up moving to leisure travel and vacations and weddings and that kind of stuff. And it has been a lot more pleasant experience than dealing with the airlines.
Right. Well, I'd imagine so. So what are some travel tips you've come across? I mean, like if you were to give advice to people that travel, what would you say?
Yeah, I think number one, it sounds self-serving. It's not self-serving. Use a travel advisor. These guys are doing it every single day. So I watch my team, and you know, it is amazing. It's amazing to them that you know they will talk to a customer about, let's say, Riviera Maya. They're going to Riviera Maya, and the people are going from July 7th to 14th. And the best deal is for a nice property is, let's say, is El Dorado Royale, and that's the best deal for that one. And they have a real good feeling for what things should cost. Then they pick up the phone and have another people who want to go August 7th to August 14th, and they're looking, and for some ridiculous reason, you have someone like Atelier who is on sale, pricing lower than everybody else, and you're like, why in the world are they pricing so cheap? Well, what's happened is Atelier just having low occupancy that week, and they're trying to get people in there. And so my advisor looks at it and goes, I know that is a ridiculously amazing property, and that is a great price for that property. So they know that immediately, where people trying to do it themselves aren't going to have that kind of information. So use a travel advisor. That's hugely important. You're going on a cruise. We have just about gotten to the point where we require that people do a night ahead of time before the cruise in the destination. A couple of reasons. Airlines things can go wrong with airlines so easily. If you try and get there the day of the cruise, there's a shot you're not going to make it. That you'll get delayed. Certainly, if I'm in your flight, you can get delayed. But also, even if the flights go off well, when you're getting on the cruise ship, you can tell who was there a night ahead of time and who's coming in right from the airport. They are frazzled, they're haggard, things haven't gone well, they're exhausted. Meanwhile, the people who were there a day ahead of time slept late, had a late breakfast, moseyed over the cruise whenever they wanted to. It's a much easier process. So you're doing something like a cruise or even an escorted tour, get in there a day ahead of time. It's really very important. Also, if you have your budget of what you're going to spend on your trip, I'd recommend doing a shorter trip at a nicer experience rather than trying to do a longer trip at a lesser experience.
Okay.
Whether it be a cruise line or resort, whatever it is, it's okay to know you need to come back someday. What you don't want to do is to stay at an inferior property or an inferior cruise ship, or even an inferior cabin on the cruise ship for a longer amount of time.
What are some of your favorite places?
Love Riviera Maya, like I said.
Cancun.
That's great. London is one of my favorite places in the world, with all the theater, and just a really fun place to go. Expensive. London's expensive, but I do love it. Went to Ireland. I think that's a beautiful place. Scotland's beautiful. A trip that we just don't get complaints on, and let me qualify that. If I get a complaint, it's the same complaint each time, and it's going to be river cruises. The complaint I will get is if the river is too high or too low, the river cruise company has to get a bus involved because the ship can't go the whole way through it, and people don't like that. But there just isn't much they can do about that. Not much river cruise can do about that. If the rivers are just having crazy flooding, or if they're too low and can't travel, you can't do much about that. But as far as when most of the time it goes through, and we just get great reviews on that, and it's a fun trip. I've done that several times, and it's just a
Rivers,
great,
European rivers?
European rivers for the most part. You also going to have it in China, India, Egypt. Just got a new one in Colombia, which is interesting.
Oh wow!
To see how that goes. They had them in Russia, although that's been suspended for some reason for the past few years. But I had them in Russia too at one point.
Where's a place you haven't been yet, but you really want to go?
Australia, and I'm going in the spring to Australia. I want to go to New Zealand pretty bad. That's pretty high on my list. I think I'm going to have trouble with that one because my wife, food-wise, New Zealand's really known for seafood and lamb, and they have a pretty heavy Asian influence there with some of the restaurants, and she does not like seafood, lamb, or Asian, so I think it's going to be hard to do a land vacation. I may have to do a cruise vacation for that. I really want to do a land vacation, but it may end up being a cruise one. I also have on my list, I want to do the fjords up in Scandinavia. A fjord cruise is big on my list to get that done.
What's one of your worst? You don't name places if you don't want to, but what's one of your worst travel experiences?
I guess, when there are times when things don't go like it's planned to, or had the trip where got stuck in London for 2 or 3 extra days. That was not planned. Actually got stuck 2 days in London and 1 day in Chicago. Looking back on it, it was pretty funny. At the time, we weren't sure when we were getting home or how, and that was annoying. I've had problems with Heathrow 2 or 3 times now. I'm just about over Heathrow at this point. As far as destinations, I've got one that I needed to do. I'm glad I did it. It's kind of just checked off the list, and I'm not interested in going back to India, but I did it. Africa isn't the same. Africa was a much better experience for me. But if tomorrow someone came and gave me 2 free seats to go to India, to go to Africa, I don't think I'd go, simply because I would probably give it to my wife for her to take somebody with her, because of all the trips she's done, Africa is her special place. She finds it to be amazing and life-altering, and I don't find it that way. I like the trip, but for her, it was, heaven's opening up. And so whenever she experiences that, she needs to take someone with her who's going to feel the same way about that.
And probably no seafood there either.
Not much.
Yeah, see.
Not much.
Deduction. Would you recommend starting your own business nowadays to anybody?
I would do better research than I did, but I think there are a lot of advantages to it. But you got to go in with your eyes wide open, because there are some pretty significant disadvantages to it. One disadvantage you have to be aware of is back when I was police, when I would leave the police station, there wasn't a darn thing I could do about anything. I was off. And so I was off. I have not been off since then. You're constantly thinking about the business. I work pretty much every day, and I don't think that's good, but I do work every day, and so I think that's a negative to it. But there's a lot of freedom that if you need to go do something else, you can do it without checking with anybody.
Right.
So I would advise it. Try to have better, work-home balance than I have.
But also you get to control your own destiny when you own your own business.
You can.
I mean, you got to work hard.
You
gotta
can.
work hard, but you control it.
And the counterpoint to your positiveness is me saying, a lot of times you have employees, and that can be a problem.
Right.
Yeah. So pros and cons.
Right. Pros and cons. How many employees do you have now?
Right now, there are 15 of us.
15 of you?
Yeah, including Kathy and myself.
Right. All in one, dealing with travel.
They're all dealing with travel. I've got 12 of them work in the Plano office. 3 of them work remotely.
Oh, okay. What's the most unusual job you've ever had then?
Most unusual job, probably going to be working with that land manager in Alabama when I was like 16 and 17. These people managed our land and other timberland in the area. And my dad got me a job with them for the summer. He wanted me to learn about timber. And that was very interesting. First day I worked for them, the people who I worked with, this guy I worked with, he had just gotten out of college. He's like 23, 24-year-old guy. So I go with him and a couple other guys, and we're going to go knock out some beaver dams. Because in timber world, a beaver dam that backs water up is really bad for trees. So we're going to go knock out some of those. And so we're going, and I've got leggings on. Never dealt leggings before. Leggings are these things you put, I have boots on and then leggings. And leggings are, you strap them on, and it is metal in front of your leg to protect you from snake bites. So I'm wearing those. We're all wearing those. And we're going out to take care of beaver dams. Didn't know it beforehand, but moccasins love hiding in beaver dams. So they have a family of moccasins, which are poisonous snakes, and they are pretty often. So we're going out and we're jumping over ditches, and this guy that's a forester, he's carrying this knapsack, and I jump across the ditch, and he goes, "Here, catch my knapsack," and I catch the knapsack, and later on he jumps across, I throw the knapsack to him, we're throwing back and forth. We get to the beaver dam, where the beaver dams are. He gets the knapsack, he pulls out dynamite. So dynamite's in the knapsack, we're throwing back and forth. And I'm looking, I'm like, what are we doing? He goes, it can't explode unless, there's a cap on it. And he had the cap on. I'm like, I'm not sure that's true. But anyway, so I've been throwing dynamite around on my first day of work here. But another thing, kind of cool, your first day at work and you're blowing stuff up with dynamite. That's pretty cool for a 16-year-old kid
every little
to do.
True.
But another thing we would do is sometimes I would work. These guys had a pulp mill, a pulp business, where they would people would go out and cut pulpwood, which is smaller trees. And so what they'd do is they'd have these trucks that have the pulpwood on it, and I'd work the shed sometimes. What would happen is they would drive up on this ramp, and it's a big scale. That's what I do. So I would you'd weigh the truck, and you'd punch the card, and then the truck would go and get unloaded. Then it would pull back up, and you'd weigh it again, and so you take the first minus the second, and that's how much wood they just delivered to you. And so I'd work that. So that was interesting too, playing that game, doing the loading and unloading of that wood. But I'd do things like we'd go through back then when you would do a first cut or second cut of timber. A first cut comes after the trees are about 15 years old, and you're taking out probably 1 or 2 trees for every 3 trees. You're taking them to thin them out to where the stronger trees can grow. And then after that, at about 22 years, you do another cut, and then you're probably taking out 1 tree for every 2. You're taking out a tree, you take out the weakest tree. But we would have a spray can, and you'd mark them. You'd spray paint on them. to show the people who are cutting the trees which ones to take out. So we'd do that. We'd also mark timber lines. So you'd get property lines. You'd get there and you would paint on the trees. You get a machete and you scrape off and you paint the lines. People would see where the property lines are. My second time working there, it was in August, and this guy Gary, he took me to this property. He goes, "Today you're going to do this line yourself." I never done it by myself before. He goes, "But there's an old line there. It'll be easy to find, but you need to repaint it. You need to put fresh paint on it to paint these property lines. It'll take you all day. I'll come back and pick you up at the end of the day." So August, Alabama, painting these property lines, hot as hell, and I do it, but I get all through it. And he picks me up, and we're driving back, and he goes, "How much we pay you?" And I go, "Well, Mr. Logan said he couldn't afford minimum wage, so I made a deal with my dad where y'all pay me $3 an hour." He goes, "So you worked 8 hours today, so you got $24. I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, that's great." He goes, "Here's a bill for $250. That was your land you just painted, and you owe us $250 now for our company having painted your land." And he goes, "The moral of the story is always know where your land is." Right. So this is land my grandmother had given me a few years earlier. Right. Very nice, but I had no idea where it was.
So you had to pay for the work you just did.
Yeah. But luckily I made $24 for the honor of paying $250 to getting that land. But it was a lesson of always know where your land is.
You say you had children?
2 children, Ruthie and Trey. My daughter born first, and Trey. So I'm Philip Barber Minor Banks Jr. Father was senior, and Trey is the third. Philip Barber Minor Banks the third, and Ruthie is Ruth Lucille Banks. Ruth for Kathy's mom, Lucille for my sister. So
what was your middle name again?
I'm sorry.
Your middle name again?
I've got 2. Barber Minor.
Barber Minor.
Philip Barber Minor Banks Jr. It's a mouthful.
Yeah, I think so. What was your major? That was bad. That was really bad. What was the decision like to have kids? Right. Yeah. I mean, you have a business going on, and probably at the beginning age. What was that like?
Yeah. Well, it was something that we always talked about and knew was going to happen at some point. Mm-hmm. And it was planned. We had decided we wanted to. And it is one of those things where we make the decision. Okay, we're going to do this. But being the strategic thing that I am, I'll put some conditions on it.
Yeah.
So here are my conditions: is we're not going to tell anybody we're trying. I don't want to be asked how it's going.
Right.
Number 2, it's going to take a while. So when it doesn't happen, no crying. We're just going to be doing this. So that lasted about 30 seconds. Everybody knew immediately we were trying to have kids, and several months went by with no luck, and every month she burst into tears. And it's just like, you don't remember the conditions. I should have written these down for you because you're obviously forgotten. But
and the reason she was burst into tears was
she was so sad that she wasn't pregnant.
Okay, yeah. I'm not sure what it was. I'm asking questions.
Yeah. But yeah, so she had Ruthie, and again, it was when she had Ruthie. Of course, she was scared, and she had to have a C-section, which was nervous for her. And they said they only had one person in the room with her, and she asked me, "Can I have my mommy instead of you?" And I'm like, her mom was a nurse, was a neonatal nurse. I'm like, go for it. You're having a C-section. Go for it. And you don't really know. I didn't really know how stressed I was, I guess, because when her mom came out and said, "Everything's fine, baby's fine, Kathy's fine," I just burst into tears because I didn't realize how stressed I was.
Right.
At that point. Now we had Trey, it was different. At that point, the place we had Trey, I could be in the room for that one. And it's so funny because we're there and we're prepping, and they go, "So this is a chair. We need you to sit in this chair." And I'm like, "Why am I?" They go, "You might faint. It's pretty gruesome." I'm like, "Have I told you about the guy with the mustache?" So I had seen all kind of things. So I was like, "We're fine," but still, they were they had the chair for me to sit there. But It was funny. It is amazing because Trey was had gone past the due date,
Right.
and I'm so glad they did the C-section because he was not even close to. I mean, he, I understand what's supposed to happen when
Right.
that happened. So I watched him make the incision, and his head pops up. He wasn't even close to the right area. He was just like he was going to move in. I think he was going to. He was having pizza delivered or something. He was not interested in getting out there anytime soon.
He
So
had DoorDash.
I know. It was like he was not even close in the right position, and he was in no hurry, and he hadn't been in a hurry since.
I understand that. So you had children. You have a business going on. Um, what was what? I mean, was it a struggle? Struggle? I mean, did you have any like really big? I mean, what was a struggle in your life then?
Well, the business has been struggled several
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
The travel industry is not a necessity. So when things go bad, travel gets affected pretty quickly.
Hmm.
And there have been several issues that have happened, whether it be 9/11. For us, bird flu was horrendous, or swine flu. It was swine flu. Sorry, swine flu was horrendous because swine flu hit Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
So you couldn't go to Mexico. And at that time, Mexico was a huge part of our business.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the pandemic was a horrible thing for us. So there have been a lot of those type things where you're thinking, are we going to survive this?
Mm-hmm.
You know, when the pandemic hit, I had to let go of like 4 or 5 people immediately, right off the bat, and that's very, very difficult
Right.
to do. But you just do what you can to survive. But yeah, I mean, there have been a lot of sleepless nights owning your own business. There's something else about the owning your own business. Talking about the pros and cons is,
Right.
There are sleepless nights. There are where's the money coming from to make payroll.
Right.
That kind of stuff. That can be tough sometimes.
Yeah.
Very, very tough.
And you get attached to your employees.
Yeah, you do. I had to come to a point where uh, I know it's not good business, but I would really care about my employees. Probably too much. Probably even love my employees, and it was caused me a lot of problems for a while. And finally, it hadn't been that long ago, but I finally had to come to realization that I can love them and realize that it's not reciprocal, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. Um, so it is difficult when certainly having to go through that with the pandemic was very difficult.
Right.
For us.
So is it just so you're working, you have children, I understand, but you're working all the time. Do you have time for like hobbies or you collect
Yeah,
anything or anything like that?
I like games. I like board games. It's a big hobby of mine. I do video games every now and then, but I prefer board games. I prefer getting together with people and doing that. I've gone on board game cruises where people are on there just to play board games and
They have a
yeah,
cruise that people just play board games.
they have. There's a couple of them actually, but one company called Dice Tower does reviews of board games, and they have a cruise, and they have like 800 people on. So not the whole ship, but it's probably maybe 15% of the ship is people doing board games on the ship, and
Right.
the company brings the games on, so they'll have a couple thousand board games.
And board games aren't like what they used to be when
No,
we were
no,
growing up.
no. These are it's a decent sized industry. You're coming out with hundreds or thousands of new board games every year,
Yeah.
coming out with them. So these are some games will take you a couple hours to play. Some will take you months to play. Just depends on what type game
Mm-hmm.
you're picking at the time. So a lot of fun. Really, really enjoy doing that when I can.
Is it what you do to relax?
Uh, I I have gotten one thing that's helped me relaxing wise, I think, and this came from the pandemic, is my sleep schedule changed. Where now I sleep twice a day,
Mm.
and that has helped me a lot. I'll sleep in the afternoon, and then I'll sleep at night also. So that has been a big help on stress.
So is it a nap or is it you divide up your sleep like you sleep 4 hours here and 4 hours here or
It's
what?
not quite that much. I'll sleep about 4 hours at night and maybe an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours in the afternoon. Uh, so
6 hours sleep, huh?
uh, uh, closer to five and a half typically. Every now and then I'll get two in. But that hour and a half has been huge because I was getting 4 hours of sleep beforehand. Uh,
Huh.
so the time that I am at my best, at my sharpest, is after that nap, around 6 p.m. after I've woken up. That's when, if something's hard, that's when I get that done because that's when I'm my strongest.
Nice. But like Dracula said the same thing, I imagine.
Yeah,
Throwing that out
similar hours.
there. Yeah,
Dracula.
I think so. Into music or anything like that, or
I like classic rock a lot, some alternative, somewhat, but heavier on classic rock.
right?
Probably like the '70s a lot. The '80s had some really good music and some really really bad music,
Right.
both. But that's going to be my wheelhouse: '70s and '80s, probably.
Do you have a pivotal moment that you've had in your life that shaped who you are today?
I think I've had a couple of them actually. I think some of them I've talked about. I think that um, I think things I have experienced that have been hard. Uh, uh, you know, being a pledge in the fraternity with not knowing anybody was hard. Coming out to Texas not knowing anybody was hard. Um, I think uh, I think going to boarding school was hard. So I think when you do enough of those, you kind of get some confidence that, well, I've been through X, Y, and Z, so this isn't going to be much
Right.
worse than that.
Right.
So I think those are probably pivotal moments because certainly growing up there wasn't anything horrific. It was fairly easy.
Right. So that would be a struggle you had in your life at that time.
Yeah, I think the big thing is the boarding school didn't have a choice on, but then I did on the other ones
Right.
and chose to, okay, this is gonna be hard, but let's do it. Opening your own business is hard, but
Right.
let's do it.
What was one of the bigger struggles you've had in your life?
I think
I mean, those
losing
seem
my
like-
father
Yeah.
was a big struggle for a few reasons. Number one, unexpected. Number two, at that point we were very close, and also there was a lot of responsibility that I felt I took on at that point. I had already taken over some of the books for the land at that point, but all of a sudden it's like, okay, the buck kind of stops with me now because my mother was older and you always kind of, even when I was doing the books and stuff, I could always call Dad and ask questions. So much knowledge he had in his head that was gone, all of a sudden was gone. And it's like, holy cow! Now it's me.
Right.
Gotta.
What happened to the store?
He ended up retiring, and so he stayed owner of the store, but did not work there. And at that point, it was my dad. Actually, when he retired, it was one of his first cousins, was one of the owners, and one of my first cousins, Jamie, were owners of it. And so my dad stepped away, and they had it set up where they all had life insurance policies on each other to pay out the other person. So when my father passed away, my cousin Jamie had an insurance policy on him, to where then he used that money to buy out our part of the store. So it wasn't a thing where there was no option for us to inherit that part of the store. It was automatic triggered that the store was paid off.
So he passed. How did that make you feel?
It was overwhelming. It was also sudden. Also guilt. At that point in my life, I was very much of a pro medical profession. I thought if they're saying ABC, that's right. They would know what they're doing. And I remember when I was seeing him, and he was in there for some minor dumb reason, and he'd gotten confused all of a sudden, and they had him strapped to the bed because he kept trying to pull things out. And I'm like, what is going on? And they're saying, as far as his own protection, he's pulling things out, and we got to do it that way. And he was struggling so hard, to try and get out of that. And I'm like, okay. And they go, we got to do it this way. And then he had a heart attack and died. And I think it was from the struggling, trying to free himself. And so looking back on it, it's guilt of, even though at that point I thought medical people knew what they were doing or had their best interests in heart. I don't think that anymore. But at the time I did, and it just guilt looking back on it, saying, "Man, I wish I had undone those restraints on him."
What's one mistake you made early on, or you've made that you've learned from, and you've
Interesting
a
question.
lesson, and you still carry that lesson with you?
Interesting. I'll tell you. How about the first one I'm going to give you is I'm going to give you a mistake I didn't make because my father advised me on it and I took it. There have been times that I have helped people out financially, and my father said, "Never loan money.
Right.
Give it to them.
Right.
Give it to them," and just tell them. And there have been several times where you can lose friendships and stuff over that kind of stuff, and it has been just. It's gone. I'm not expecting it back. Don't worry about it. We are good. Mistakes that I have made. There have been a lot of mistakes I have made. I think in the business world, I think that I have been naive is a hard word, but that might be accurate. On expecting reciprocal, that if you're treating a company really well, that they're going to treat you back well. If you're treating an employee really well, they're going to do it back for you. And that might have been a little naive. And I think it's not just the fact that it didn't happen. I think it was the fact that I allowed myself to be hurt by the fact that that didn't happen. I think learning that this is just the way it is. You need to do what's right and not worry about what they do. As much, and there are times I can look back where really crappy things have happened to us and it ended up being a good thing. But at the time we thought this is disaster, But then you look back on it and I wouldn't change it,
right,
at all.
Right.
I had one with some resorts in Mexico that we supported a lot, and we had a very close relationship with them, and we had a corporate client. We had a client who did incentive trip with his people, and they went to a different resort and asked us to handle it for them, and we did. And Kathy and another one of my travel advisors went down with this group. This is a decent sized group, and while they're down there, Kathy goes, while you're here, let's go look at the other resort. These friends of ours own this resort, and let's go look at that for next year. And they did, and the people loved it. They said, "This is fantastic. We'll do this." And so they ended up saying the CEO of the company wanted to go on vacation to one of those properties, and we set it up. And he went down there, and he kept trying to get the nicest suite they had, and it wasn't available. We kept trying, couldn't get it. He gets to that resort, these people that we're very close with, and while he's there, the timeshare guy gets a hold of him and says, "If you'll buy the timeshare, we'll give you the suite for the rest of the stay. It's available." It wasn't available. Turned out the owners of the property were in the suite and had told them, "If he buys the timeshare, we'll move out." And so he bought the timeshare, and he got the suite for the rest of the week. That made us look horrible, but then he used his timeshare weeks to pay for the entire company trip the next year that we had sold him when going to that resort. So now we were cut out of the equation. So this company we're so close with stabbed us in the back,
right,
on that. So we were very angry, and it caused all kinds of problems. However, the agent who was down there with Kathy, who had worked with this group, got very angry at that company and started booking their competitor, and their competitor booked through a different tour operator. So our numbers of that company went way up, and that allowed us to get into Signature. We couldn't get into Signature before, but now because we got screwed over, this agent got our numbers up high enough to where Signature accepted us. So looking back on it, Signature is a cooperative of travel agencies.
Okay.
Best group in the industry, I think. And we got turned down twice before. When I applied the third time, our numbers were high enough with these other companies that they let us in. And a lot of that had to do with my advisor getting screwed over on that deal. So it was a bad thing, her relationship with that hotelier, but I wouldn't change it now because Signature is extremely important to us.
Door was closed, but the window was open.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
What advice would you give yourself, knowing that now? What advice would you give your 16-year-old self now?
Definitely to take academics more seriously than I did. I pretty much. I mean, I did great in high school. I told you my grades weren't fantastic, but I learned in
Yeah.
high school, and I wasn't. I think I was pretty mediocre grade wise, but I learned a lot. In college, I did not learn much in college. So how to work people. So I would say you really got to take academics seriously in college. It's important.
Would you give yourself a what would you? I mean, I know you tell yourself to work, but would you say, hey, life is going to be great or life is going to be tough?
Both.
Yeah.
I mean, both are true. Uh, uh, I think I tell myself try not to stress as much
Right.
as you stress. That things will work out. Because again, there have been some very times when you are sleepless nights, sleepless nights, not feeling great,
Right.
feeling the world's crashing on you, very much of a lonely feeling.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so when you die, not that you're going to,
Oh yeah,
but what would you want your epitaph to be?
he helped other people. I think that with my travel agency, again, talking about the way I feel about my employees, my favorite times is when one thing we do with our employees when we meet with them I meet with them every 3 or 4 months, each one individually, and we go over usual work stuff. But the thing that I have at the very end is we talk about what goals are you working toward? What dreams do you have outside of work? I mean, it can be work goals too, but why are we working? What are we trying to accomplish? And we've had, I'm trying to pay off student loan. I want to buy a new car. I want a house. And I've been very fortunate to be a part of all those things. I can remember being in Mexico one time on a company trip. Our whole office is down there. And one of my employees came up to me and she goes, do a shot of tequila with me. And I'm like, oh, that's a really bad idea. I don't do tequila anymore. And she goes, I just pushed the button and paid off my student loan. And I'm like, pour it. I'll do it with you. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And I've been there when they're buying cars, buying cars, buying houses, that kind of stuff.
Right.
So that's a lot of fun to see them succeed.
So he helped others.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of helping others, I really appreciate you being here for this. You
Oh, well,
really helped
thank
me a
you.
lot. It was really fun. Got to know you. If you like this episode, please like, review, subscribe if you can, and we'll see you next time on My Dash Story. Thanks, Philip.
Thank you.